Imagine moving into your dream home, a place that promises a fresh start and healing for your family. Now imagine waking up to shadowy figures watching you, sinister whispers in the dark, and forces so malevolent they tear at the very fabric of your family. This is not the plot of a horror movie. This is the chilling story of the haunting in Connecticut. A story that will make you question where the line between reality and the supernatural truly lies. Today, we'll delve into one of the most infamous hauntings in paranormal history. We'll start with the Snedeker family's move to Southington, Connecticut, their shocking discoveries about their new home, and the horrifying events that followed. We'll discuss the role of renowned paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, who declare the house infested with demons. Then we'll tackle the controversies. Were these events a genuine haunting or an elaborate hoax? Finally, we'll explore the cultural impact of this haunting and its transformation into books, documentaries, and films. Buckle up, it's going to be a wild, spine chilling ride. This is Scarlet Tavern. Ting!
Ting.
We're a little too far away for glass tings right now. We have our D&D tables out.
Ever since we moved the drink cart, we always keep forgetting about the
glasses.
Even when we had the drink cart, we forgot about the glasses.
Yeah, we have our extra 2 D&D tables out, so we're spread out even more than normal. So we can't even reach each other in the middle.
I also blame the forced sobriety that was forced upon me for podcast recording.
Yes.
Too.
Well, especially because we worked out and everything, so.
I figured it was because you all blame me because I had that one double scotch once, and next thing you know, oh no, you're not suitable to record.
You weren't.
I was perfectly fine.
No, you weren't.
Anyways.
I was fine.
No, you weren't.
So, this is the true story of the haunting in Connecticut. Movies, TV shows.
Wasn't even a good movie. I watched it.
I saw the haunting in Connecticut.
The Discovery Channel one.
Yeah, the ghost story one on the ghost stories and that.
Mm-hmm. That was the good one. That was actually
the movie's garbage.
The movie is horrible.
Never seen it.
You can thank Ed and Lorraine. You can thank Ed and Lorraine for that one.
It's not even scary.
And that's the other thing. You are going to hear us tear into Ed and Lorraine Warren. We already have talked about how much we hate them.
And we're going to be doing a full episode here, probably next season, on Ed and Lorraine.
Yeah,
because I want to do that.
We have a few extra things coming up. We do have a topic that we decided to spring up. It wasn't originally planned, but with all the news about it and everything, we are going to be doing a few parts on Casey Anthony, the wonderful role model of a mother.
For that one, I will be drinking.
So because of her coming to TikTok, and now obviously she's kicked off of TikTok, she was banned, but her coming to TikTok and all of this stuff, being a quote unquote advocate, we decided we wanted to do an episode because we haven't touched on that yet. And I didn't plan on touching that at all this season until she popped up. So we moved some stuff around, and we're definitely going to touch on that. But, and then we're gonna dig back into Scientology, see if we can piss the Scientologists off.
Let's not and say we did, please.
That's already happened.
Yeah. So
we may even have another religion we may or may not be pissing off at some point in the future.
I'll probably email the Scientologists.
No.
Like I did with Heaven's Gate.
No. Just
but yeah, but tonight it is the haunting in Connecticut. So the Snedekers, horrible last name.
I didn't even know how to pronounce
Snedeker. We're a typical middle-class family trying to navigate the challenges of daily life when their eldest son, Philip, was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. This rare form of cancer affected the lymphatic system, requiring aggressive treatments including chemotherapy and radiation therapy. The grueling hours-long trips from their home in northern New York to the University of Connecticut hospital became emotionally and financially draining for the family. That's a long trip.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because-
Just driving across the state of New York for that.
I mean, northern New York is a pretty broad place, so I guess it really would depend on where they are.
But still going
I
all
don't-
the way down into Connecticut.
No,
Ugh.
yeah, that's a drive that I don't want to do.
Yeah, I don't think it ever said like where in New York they were from.
But still,
I didn't really see anything about that.
Yeah, that's despite anybody who's ever driven through Connecticut or that area knows that on a map it doesn't look that far, but that's like the state. Those areas are like I call Connecticut the state that never ends.
No, that's Illinois.
That too.
Driving through the state of Illinois, it's 10 hours.
Feel like longer too, especially when you're going through Chicago.
That is, and it's Chicago is like really the one thing that you see, and then it's all cornfields
Yep.
until you get to St. Louis.
To any of our listeners in Illinois, you know it's true, so don't try and deny it or send us angry mail about it.
You fibs.
You know, there'll be a time where I say I don't agree with that. That reflects only her opinion, but no, I'm with my wife on this one. Dibs, you know who you are.
So it looks like, from what I'm looking at, they were. Well, it depends. If it's the same Snedekers, there is a Snedeker farm, which it's probably all the same family,
Oh,
more than likely. Upper Nyack, Rockland County.
Oh, that's a drive.
Like upper.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. No, that's
because there's like it's like a house and an orchard there.
okay. So wait a minute, Rockland. Well, that's actually not that far from Connecticut. Yeah, that's
But depending on where
I mean, you're
in
still
Connecticut,
And then there's also, it looks like there's the Snedeker family cemetery in Woodhaven, Queens.
I mean, it's probably taking them forever because I got to drive around New York City. But
I mean, I'm sure from what I'm looking at, the Snedeker family, like, it's got a long heritage in New York. Like, they came from Germany and they're German and Danish.
yeah,
And then they spread throughout New York.
and then it depends. Like, where's the hospital that he went to?
Yeah.
it's true. Probably Hartford, if anything. So it's still a drive. I don't blame them for wanting to move closer to that, especially with a sick child.
Because he's probably having to go in like probably weekly.
Apparently, the Snedeker family was a prominent colonial family.
Probably if it's the same family.
That homestead was owned from 1730 to 1909.
Dang.
Yeah. It's like, it's part of the New York Heritage website. So, but we digress. Faced with the mounting medical bills and the toll of long commutes, Carmen and Alan Snedeker decided to relocate closer to Phillips Treatment Center. This decision was both practical and urgent. They needed a space that could accommodate their large family and provide a stable environment during Phillips treatments. Snow. So, when the Snedekers first saw the house at 208 Meriden Avenue, it seemed like the perfect solution. It was a spacious colonial-style home with 5 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, more than enough room for the couple, their 4 children, and Carmen's 2 nieces who often stayed with them. The rental price was surprisingly affordable for a property of its size, a fact that immediately caught their attention. Although Carmen noted a faint feeling of unease during their first visit, the urgency of their situation outweighed any reservations. With Philip's health declining, they felt they couldn't afford to be picky. The family signed the lease and prepared to move in, believing this house would make a fresh start. Now, of course, Philip's condition is horrible.
Yeah.
But his condition plays a big part in all of this.
Yes.
Because number one, obviously, it's what gets them to move into this house. But we also see that they are desperate for money.
Yes.
It is believed, as we'll get into, it's believed that they made up all of this stuff with the help of Ed and Lorraine to make money so that they could survive and try and help their kids survive.
Because I don't think St. Jude's was around during that time, were they?
Ooh.
Or like the Shriner Hospital?
Shriners, yes, would have been.
Shriner's been around for a long time. St. Jude's, 1962.
No, they would have been around too.
February 4th, 1962 in Memphis was the first one. But yeah, Shriners has been around for a long time.
Yeah. So, but treatments for stuff like that is not cheap.
No, it is not.
Shriners, I believe, Shriners has been around since 1870.
Damn, I didn't know that was that old.
So the Shriners are, you know who the Shriners are?
Yeah.
They are the higher end of the Freemasons.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So you have the Freemasons. The Shriners are the high end, the top tier Freemasons.
I just knew that they had that. They have hospitals, right?
Yes. Shriners have a lot. Shriners do a lot of good work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen
and
them.
they're one of the oldest societies in America, in the world.
I've seen them on their little motorcycles at parades and
hats.
Those are top tier Freemasons.
Okay.
You have to be a Freemason before you can become a Shriner. I only know this because my entire family were Freemasons. You have to be a Freemason before you become a Shriner. But Shriners, again, do amazing work. We actually have Shriners, the Shriners Children's Hospital here, in Cincinnati. So, which we'll say, if we also have Cincinnati Children's, amazing hospital, donate to them. They do amazing work. I know people that have had to go there. They are really, really good. And we're like 10 minutes from them. And honestly, with that may be one of the things we do with the charity. So speaking of that, we announced it on our D&D podcast, and I know we're kind of going off topic here, but we decided to start a nonprofit. It's going to be called, or it is called, Dungeons and Dog Tags, and it is by veterans for veterans. Unfortunately, after leaving the military, you lose your sense of purpose, your sense of worth, your friends and your family, and you don't quite know what to do or where to go. And unfortunately, a lot of times that leads to depression and anxiety and suicidal tendencies and things like that. And we wanted to solve that by making a foundation that brings D&D and TTRPGs as a whole into that community to help people deal with their traumas. Traditional therapy sucks. Most military members won't do it because they feel like nobody can relate to them. So by doing this, they can deal with their traumas without doing traditional therapy. And now it's not just veterans. Obviously, veterans are our main focus, but we will never turn anybody away. We will always do extra stuff. So if you want to check it out, you can see little blurbs. We're still working on finalizing everything, but you can check it out on our website, www.dammediallc.com, and there's a button for Dungeons and Dog Tags. And you can kind of read about why we founded it and things like that. And then we're going to make a big statement when the 501c3 is complete and start gathering donations so we can start helping people, even kids like this, because sick children and D&D, what better way to help them not think about what they're dealing with than play a fun game.
Yep.
So, yeah. Anyways, let's continue. So shortly after moving in, Carmen made a shocking discovery in the basement. Among dusty furniture and forgotten items were remnants of the house's past, as the Hallahan Funeral Home. These included embalming equipment, a blood drainage pit, casket handles, and even a pulley system used to move bodies. Further exploration revealed unsettling photographs of deceased individuals and personal items like toe tags and head tags. And that, for any normal person, would be like, nope, I'm gone.
As soon as I found that, I'd be like,
I think it'd be cool.
I would be like, I'm breaking the lease. I'm the fuck out.
Honestly, I don't understand. They must have took this place sight unseen, because there's usually, when you view a property to rent or to buy, you kind of tour the place beforehand.
I mean, they were also desperate in a hurry.
Which is probably why it was. I'm sure this had to have been taken sight unseen, because, like you said, if I had seen that, I'd have been like, and I will be finding somewhere else. Thank you very much.
So records indicated that the Hallahan Funeral Home operated for decades, serving the Southington community. During its years of operation, it saw countless funerals, which made its history particularly somber. Local lore hinted at dark rumors surrounding the funeral home. Some neighbors whispered about improper pictures, while others spoke of eerie occurrences witnessed by employees. And I'm sure some of the rumors were they're using these bodies for devil worship.
I mean, honest to God,
sacrifice. They're eating them.
I mean, honestly, I would imagine it's mostly, unless you're in the funeral home business, I'm sure what would normally be normal to them is probably going to look creepy to the outside. And judging from what I've seen of the neighborhood of 208, was it 208 Meriden, Southington, Connecticut? It's a suburban area. I was very shocked. I was shocked. It must have been there before the rest of the neighborhood came in, because I can't imagine anybody would have just plop a funeral home in the middle of suburbia. But again, I don't think these people probably really understood what they were seeing. So,
I mean, I really think it's weird that a funeral home is just in the middle of two houses.
Like I said, I get the feeling that maybe the funeral home was there first and everybody else came afterward.
The morgue doors were still there.
Oh, shit.
So you can see right here, the morgue doors are still there.
Yeah.
On the side.
Fuck that.
So growing up, I went to a church we had a church inside of a funeral home.
Nope.
And one day they forgot to take one of the bodies back. So we came in to do church, and we were there early to set up, and there was a casket laying there right in the middle of the floor, and they had to send all the kids out so they could wheel the casket out, and they left a fucking body just sitting there.
I do fire alarm inspections and service calls. In New York, I had to inspect a funeral home. And just as I was getting started, I walked into one of the main parlors. I turned the lights on so that I could see where everything was. And then, lo and behold, there is a coffin there with a dead body. I was like, what the fuck? And I went and kind of told the family that ran it. It was all downstairs, all their offices down there. It was just like, there's somebody up there. He's like, well, he won't mind if you do your job. And I was like, I mind. And of course, where was one of the smoke detectors I had to test? Right over the dead guy.
Just climb on top of him.
Thankfully, I've never seen a dead body outside of actual funerals.
I've seen too many.
Or if they, like, family members that just passed.
So Carmen and Alan initially kept the discovery from their children, fearing it would upset them. However, as the children explored their new home, they quickly found evidence of its history, such as an embalming table and coffin remnants. Despite these discoveries, the family decided to stay, citing financial constraints and their commitment to Philip's treatment as reasons to push forward. Listen, as a kid, I'd probably fucking play with that shit. I'd climb on that embalming table. I believe
in the the mini series, they did. Like, they were messing around with stuff in there.
So the basement was converted into bedrooms for Philip and his younger brother Bradley. Despite its unsettling ambiance, the boys found it appealing because of its size and privacy. What the family didn't realize was that the basement had been the site of embalming procedures and body storage, making it a potential epicenter for residual energy.
Okay, how do you like? Okay, you find all this stuff, find out that it was a funeral home, but don't realize that the basement would have been the morgue.
Common sense isn't common.
No.
I mean, at F.E. Warren, the security forces building was the old Army hospital, because it used to be Fort Warren back during like the Civil War, and the armory was the morgue. So the armorers would sit there and they would say that, you guys know how heavy the armory doors are.
Yeah.
So they said that the armory doors would move on their own. They would start to close.
There's no fucking way.
For those that don't know, those are like 500 pounds.
Yeah.
They're like huge safe doors that usually takes 1 to 2 people to push it close, and then you latch it like what you see in the movies for the vaults. It's just like that. And so this isn't something that a breeze will just blow.
No.
But yeah, guys would sit there and go, that door moved, and all you'd hear is, and then they would say that they would see stuff moving down the hallways.
No.
The Sabres arena where the Buffalo Sabres play, the locker room is supposed to be haunted. I worked security for the Buffalo Sabres for some years, and I got to know the Buffalo at the time. I don't know if he's still there. The equipment manager for the Buffalo Sabres, and his office was in the locker room. And how we were talking about ghosts, and he told me, "Oh, the locker room's haunted." And I was like, "How is the locker room haunted?" He's like, "Oh, there's he's like, I saw like a little ghost kid," and it's like, did a Sabres fan die or something? He's like, "No, man. Back in the day, the property where the arena's built used to be a paper factory, and back in the 1800s, there was a massive fire, and all these kids died." And sure enough, they're on the location where the Sabres arena is today. Used to be a paper mill, and there was a massive fire in about the 1850s, something 1800s, and about a dozen or so child workers were killed. And the way he described it, he saw a ghostly newsie, like what is that that musical, the Newsies. He's like, it looked just like him. And of course, what do? One bored night when I had nothing to do, I walked through the locker room and never saw a thing.
I mean, I know Hanscom Air Force Base is haunted, but that's also because it's like right near.
There's two major battles in the Revolutionary War, and
the Boston Massacre was
in Boston, but
no, it wasn't. Boston Massacre was not in Boston.
Yes, it was.
Look it up.
Yeah.
I believe it was in Concord.
No.
Concord or Lexington.
No, it was not there.
So I'll tell you right now. So F.E. Warren is actually one of the most haunted military bases in the nation. We have Gus quarters. So one of the popular ghost stories, you get told these ghost stories when you start. It involves the spirit of Gus Quarters, a man who supposedly leapt from a second-story window while fleeing an enraged husband after being caught with his wife, and it is said to haunt the base. Troops on the base have reported unexplained doors and cupboards opening and closing on their own. Rumor has it that residents keep a log of unnatural incidents like early morning phantom maneuvers on the parade grounds. A long-deceased cavalryman is said to refuse to leave his post, while another specter prefers to linger in the missile museum. Oh, yeah. There's also a nurse ghost. You can hear screams of I do remember this. You can hear loud, horrifying screams of a young woman bellowing through the fam camp.
Fuck.
Yeah, imagine staying in the fam camp, visiting your family, and you hear the girl screams. I've heard that one. And then Building 90, which is the security forces building. It's haunted by a little girl ghost named Natalie.
The Boston Massacre did occur in Boston on State Street, just outside the Custom House.
Yeah, I think it went along that trail.
I think you're thinking of the Battle of Concord, which was right along that
Probably.
trail.
Yeah, but that base was haunted, including housing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Specifically our house.
No, it's all of housing.
When you get
You good?
not the first time it's gone down the hole. So many from the start, the basement carried an oppressive atmosphere. It was perpetually cold even during the summer and had a faint chemical odor reminiscent of formaldehyde. The space quickly became a source of tension, with Philip complaining of strange noises, shadows, and an overwhelming sense of being watched. Philip, that's just you dying. I mean that's what I would have said. Like, kid, you're sick. Like, who knows what he's seeing when he's dealing with this? Especially because there's not really anything to cure this. There is no cure to this. He will die. Many Southington residents were familiar with the house's history. Some claim the property had a visible sign reading Hallahan Funeral Home, though others argued it was partially covered or removed before the Snedekers moved in. The landlord, Daryl Kern, insisted he inform the family about the house's past during the leasing process. However, Carmen later denied knowing about the funeral home history before moving in.
Uh-huh.
And the Hallahan Funeral Home had been a fixture in the community for years, but its closure was shrouded in mystery. Some locals believed it shut down due to financial difficulties, while others speculated about malpractice.
Which is very common in the funeral home industry.
Yep. So the combination of Philip's illness, the financial strain of medical treatments, and the upheaval of moving create a perfect storm of stress for the Snedekers. Living in a house associated with death, particularly one where mortuary practices occurred, added a psychological burden that likely heightened the family's sensitivity to their surroundings. On their first night in the house, the Snedekers experienced minor unsettling events, odd creaks, drafts, and a pervasive sense of unease. While they brushed these off as normal for an old house, these incidents marked the beginning of what would become a much darker chapter in their lives. Our writer mistyped. They put bruised instead of brushed.
Whoopsie.
Fire the writers.
Okay.
No, we're not firing the writers.
You need to dock their pay.
I don't get paid.
Perfect.
Look at me for it. I don't pay her.
Technically, you're supposed to be reading all of these after I'm done with them.
You're supposed to proofread these. This is.
I don't remember that in my.
This contract. Is your part of the business.
I don't remember that in my contract.
His part of the business that he does nothing with.
Yeah.
I don't recall this in my contract. I wanted my union delegate to review this.
I am a union delegate.
How can that be? You're also the boss.
And I'm also the HR. And
how folks, what I have to deal with?
You're fired.
Damn.
Paranormal investigators later speculated that the house's long history as a funeral parlor left behind residual energy. Some even suggested that improper handling of the deceased or occult practices, like I said, performed by employees could have opened a door for malevolent entities.
I don't think there's ever been any evidence of occult.
No, there hasn't, but that's always the go-to, especially funeral homes, stuff like that. That's always the go-to. Oh, they're doing occult stuff. They're sacrificing bodies. Skeptics, however, argued that the psychological impact of living in such a space could account for much of the family's experiences. By the time the Snedekers began experiencing unexplained phenomena, the stage was already set for their story to take on a life of its own. The combination of the house's grim history and the family's vulnerable state created fertile ground for what would become one of the most infamous hauntings in paranormal history. So, on the first night in the house, Philip, sleeping in the basement. Again, remember they fixed up the basement, so he's not just sleeping in some drab, dreary basement. They did fix it up. Because that'd be pretty shitty of them to put the sick kid in the basement.
It really would be.
Reported hearing faint whispers and the sound of footsteps. He described the persistent feeling of being watched as though unseen eyes followed his every move. Philip's most disturbing claim was seeing a shadowy man with white hair wearing a pinstripe suit. This apparition would stand at the edge of his bed, silently staring at him.
That's kind of creepy.
Makes me want to buy a pinstripe suit and a white-haired wig.
No.
Stand silently at the foot of your bed.
Okay, I will shoot you if you do that.
Carmen and Alan initially attributed Philip's experiences to the stress of his illness and the side effects of his cancer treatments. They reassured him that what he saw and heard was a product of his imagination or medical condition. Within weeks, the eerie occurrences extended beyond Philip. The younger children began complaining of cold drafts and strange noises, such as scratching sounds coming from inside the walls. One child reportedly heard their name whispered in the middle of the night.
Don't even fucking think about it.
Waking them from sleep and leaving them too terrified to return to bed.
Don't even fucking think about it.
What are you looking at me? I don't do that shit. I like our room to be calm, serene, and drama free. Not like having practical jokes being done in there.
The family noticed that items around the house seemed to move on their own. Keys left on a table would reappear in a different room, and chairs were found pulled away from the dining table when no one had been near them. Carmen described an instance where a vase toppled over as though pushed, despite no breeze or disturbance in the room.
You mean a vase?
Face.
Vase.
Face.
I just wanted to be funny. I don't really care how it's said.
It's a vase. Because we are the proper English speakers. Actually, I am the proper English speaker. I am. The Southern accent is the closest to what the real British accent was.
Is that what? Does that even include the Floridian accent?
Yes, it does.
I know I can't speak proper English.
The British accent that we know now, they changed when we separated from them. So the United States Southern accent is historically closest to what a British accent would have been before we separated. So we Southerners are the right ones. Lights would flicker without explanation, sometimes turning off entirely, only to switch back on moments later. The family described a particular glow to the light that seemed unnatural, almost too bright or too dim for the bulbs in use. Radios and TVs reportedly turned on by themselves, often emitting static or strange faint voices that couldn't be understood. I mean, our lights turn themselves on.
Yeah,
this light turns itself on.
Same with this one.
All the time.
That's weird.
It's been doing it while you've been gone. They just randomly turn themselves on.
That's weird.
Yeah, and kids still can't sense shit, and I sense it all the fucking time.
Carmen claimed to see a dark figure through the hallway near the kitchen, while Alan saw what he described as a faint mist rising from the basement stairs. That, my sir, would be a gas leak.
I'm like, well, I think the gas would be invisible, but...
The children, particularly the younger ones, described seeing shadowy figures darting quickly out of sight, fueling their fear of being alone in any part of the house. While mopping the floor one day, Carmen claimed the water in her bucket turned blood red and began to emit a smell like rotting flesh. She recounted the moment as one of absolute horror, doubting her sanity as she watched the water change color. Just fucking Jesus there?
This is
water into wine?
I don't think he turned water into blood.
Could look the same. Here, mop your floor with wine.
Okay, that's just an abuse of wine.
Yeah. One of the most harrowing incidents occurred in the shower. Carmen described how the shower curtain wrapped itself tightly around her, pressing against her face and throat, leaving her struggling to breathe. She believed an unseen force was attempting to strangle her.
At that point, I'd be like, fuck that. I'm out.
You know what movie that reminds me of?
What?
A very, very famous horror.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
The Entity. Yeah, as we'll probably see later on, we may.
It's not just that one either. It's what's his name that did The Birds?
Oh, Alfred Hitchcock.
Alfred Hitchcock movie, Psycho.
Oh, Psycho. Well,
That's
that was
the
just
one
in this. That was just the. It didn't wrap around her in
No.
Psycho, but he did. She just got killed in.
Yeah,
That's honestly the first one that was popped in
I
my
love
head.
Psycho.
Nope. I've never seen it.
Alfred Hitchcock is amazing.
Won't see it ever.
He was great.
It's not that scary.
The Birds is great.
It's in black and white. It can't be that scary.
Yeah. The children also began reporting physical contact. Bradley once woke up screaming, claiming something had grabbed his leg and was pulling him toward the foot of the bed. Carmen's niece, Tammy, experienced nightly torment, describing how an unseen force would lift her quilt, caress her arm, and even attempt to molest her. Tammy said she felt paralyzed during these encounters, unable to call for help or move.
Okay, so if an entity attacks me, fine. If it's attacking children and attempting to do all this shit, no, I would be the fuck out protecting those children.
So,
But that takes a lot of fucking power.
okay, I'm probably gonna be the bad guy here.
Oh, I know exactly what you're going for.
This, if it were me, not knowing the entire picture and I just heard this, it's not a fucking spirit. It's her uncle.
Somebody is messing.
Somebody is molesting her.
Yeah,
Yep.
probably.
To me, that's what I would see.
Yeah,
It's not
somebody.
a fucking spirit. You know how rare it is to have that claim of a spirit trying to molest you? Number one, they can't.
Not really. No.
So, to me, that's what happened, and she's using this to create it in her mind because how can her uncle be a bad guy?
Yeah.
So it's got to be the spirit because her uncle wouldn't do this to her.
Or it could be somebody else in the household doing it.
One of her cousins,
Yeah.
somebody
Because
like
a
that.
spirit has to be incredibly powerful to do that.
Most of them probably just don't have that kind of power.
And then you're not talking about a spirit
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah, we're in a whole different ballpark at that point.
Let me see.
But again, Adam Lorraine's Warren's case, so who knows what the hell happened.
Honestly, at this point, I really believe that they are kind of building it up so that they can bring Ed and Lorraine Warren into it.
So the oldest was their son with Hodgkin's lymphoma. He was like 13, 14. So the rest of them were more than likely elementary or middle school aged.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know the exact ages of any of them. But yeah, to me, that's what that probably was. So as the paranormal activity intensified, so did the tension within the family. Arguments became more frequent, with Carmen and Alan disagreeing on how to handle the situation. Philip's behavior became increasingly erratic. He developed an obsession with the occult, began wearing black leather, and lashed out violently at his siblings. On one occasion, he locked his younger brother in a chest and walked away, seemingly unaware of his actions. Just sounds like being a brother. But
Yeah.
Sounds like a prick.
I don't know how many times I did, well, not like, and walk away. Siblings do some fucked up shit to each other.
Mm.
so the Snedeker started sleeping with all the lights on. Couldn't do that. Hoping the illumination would deter the entities. They avoided the basement whenever possible, leaving Philip to endure its oppressive atmosphere alone.
Wow.
What dickheads.
I'm about to say.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're like, he's dying anyways. Let him deal with it.
Jesus.
Carmen turned to religion for solace, placing crucifixes in every room and frequently praying aloud for protection. However, she reported that some of these objects were found overturned or broken.
At that point, you're not dealing with spirits.
It's a demon.
And you have a whole hell of a lot bigger problem.
Carmen and Alan reported that their bed would shake at night, in a slow rhythmic motion, mimicking the pattern of a heartbeat. Well, see, when a mommy and a daddy.
That's what I'm thinking. Like,
Yeah.
This is the birds and the bees. This occurrence left them both terrified and confused as they could find no physical explanation for the vibrations. Carmen's like, Alan, will you stop? I'm trying to sleep. apparitions became more vivid and frequent. Carmen described seeing a woman with long black hair and hollow eyes standing at the foot of her bed. This figure would remain motionless, staring intensely until Carmen screamed or turned on the light. Another commonly reported apparition was that of a young boy who would dart quickly between rooms, leaving behind faint laughter or the sound of crying.
No.
The house began to emit foul odors, often described as a mix of decay and chemicals. These smells would appear suddenly and vanish just as quickly, often in rooms where no windows or vents could explain the draft. Family members frequently felt unexplained cold spots even in the middle of the summer and described the sensation as chilling to the bone. Well, no wonder you're smelling chemicals. There's still chemicals there.
From the way they're describing it, this place wasn't fully cleaned out. So.
And they never said that they got rid of any of that stuff. They just found it.
Even in the documentary, like they never specified they got rid of any of it.
I hope you get rid of it. What else do they have used for that shit?
The kids to play with it.
Yeah, I guess. Or, maybe they just
But I would
on hand from when Philip dies, save a little cost in his area.
But I would assume that the formaldehyde would have been taken out because it's a toxic chemical.
You would think, but considering how shady some of the funeral home businesses
this
could be.
This is also the 80s.
Yeah.
People were on cocaine. They weren't doing things right.
Allen reported being slapped across the face by an unseen hand while alone in the kitchen. The force left a visible red mark, which he described as both terrifying and humiliating. That was just Carmen.
I'm like, dude,
he's
just admit
he's being abused.
I said, your wife slapped you for whatever reason. Just own up.
Carmen claimed that while folding laundry one afternoon, she was pushed to the ground by an invisible force. She described the moment as deeply violating, leaving her shaken for days. Her hip gave out. Her knee gave out. She fell. Tammy, the niece, reached a breaking point after being repeatedly assaulted. In one incident, she ran out of the house screaming, claiming the entity was still touching her as she fled down the street. It's not possible.
No.
Because they won't leave their place of haunting unless you have an item that they're attached to. By this time, the Snedekers were emotionally and physically exhausted. They no longer felt safe in their own home and began to fear for their lives. The incidents had escalated to a point where they could no longer dismiss or endure them. After enduring these events for months, the family contacted Ed and Lorraine Warman, renowned paranormal investigators.
That hurt to write down.
The Snedekers hoped that the Warrens could provide an explanation for the horrors they were experiencing and, more importantly, a solution. This marked the beginning of a new chapter in the haunting, one that would see the Snedeker story take on national attention and spark debates that still continue to this day.
Yeah, because this is actually not that far from where Ed and Lorraine Warren actually live. They're based in Connecticut.
Yeah, and I believe their nephew still is alive, and he runs the museum.
Yeah,
I can't remember what his name is. I watched his TV show on like the Travel Channel or Discovery Channel, which one it was on.
John Zaffis.
Yes.
Yeah.
He had a TV show for haunted relics for a while.
Yeah, he has the John Zaffis Paranormal Museum in Stratford. His TV series is called Haunted Collector.
Yes.
It was a sci-fi series.
Sci-fi? Oh, shit.
It was on Sci-Fi. Yeah, it's the nephew.
I think most of their stuff is haunted.
Well, he has stuff from like Ed and Lorraine.
Oh yeah,
taking it.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
I think most of that stuff is not haunted.
No. So after enduring months of escalating terror, Carmen Snedeker, desperate for answers, contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens were already well known for their investigations into high-profile hauntings, including the Amityville Horror and the Smurl haunting. That's one that we may touch on next season. Carmen believed that they were the only ones who could help. During the call, Carmen described holding a rosary beads, which she claimed began to unravel in her hands as she spoke. Lorraine, a self-proclaimed clairvoyant, interpreted this as a sign of strong demonic activity in the home.
Or it could be a sign that rosary was old and or poorly and cheaply made.
Which is very possible.
Within days, Ed and Lorraine Warren arrived at 208 Meriden Avenue, accompanied by their nephew, John Zaffis, a budding paranormal investigator who would later gain fame in his own right. So,
Haunted collector.
correct. Among having his museum. So the Smurl haunting happened in Pennsylvania. So it's in West Pittston, Pennsylvania. It was in a duplex from 1974 to 1989, and basically it was kind of this whole same thing. One of the most notable things is that they claim their dog was thrown against a wall, and a family member experienced both physical and sexual assaults by an unseen entity. So it's kind of the same thing. It's there's actually a book to it called The Haunted: One Family's Nightmare. And the Smurls wrote it, the Warrens wrote it, and Robert Curran wrote it. And then there was a TV film called The Haunted that was based off of this. It had the actress Sally Kirkland in it, which got her a Golden Globe. But yeah, so that's one we may touch on next year.
I think I actually have that one written down as I was like going through it. I'm like, oh, this sounds interesting. Yeah. Oh, this sounds interesting.
It's kind of the same thing. So Lorraine immediately sensed a heavy, oppressive energy in the house. She described it as a dark and malevolent presence that seemed to permeate every room, particularly the basement. Lorraine claimed to feel the lingering energy of trauma and grief, which she believed were imprints left behind by the house's history as a funeral home.
Of course it's going to have that energy there. It was a funeral home.
So my mind immediately changed demonologist to dermatologist. As a dermatologist, Ed Warren. As a demonologist, Ed Warren took a more analytical approach.
Sure he did.
He noted the strange sounds, cold spots, and electrical disturbances that seemed to follow the family. He was particularly struck by the reports of physical attacks, which he believed indicated the presence of multiple entities, possibly demonic in nature.
And I want to say, I believe Ed Warren was a self-taught demonologist.
Both of them are self-taught.
Yeah. And as far as electrical...
By the way, you can't go get your master's in demonology from your local college.
Yeah.
No. You have to go through... You have to be a priest, right? Through the Catholic Church?
So...
And be specially selected for that whole thing?
Most priests who are chosen to be exorcists are medical doctors, trained psychiatrists, child psychiatrists. Sometimes they're historians. But yes, they do. I know the Vatican has its own teaching curriculum for it.
And they do teach demonology there.
Yes, as part of church doctrine and everything. And obviously your local parish priest isn't really learning about a lot of this stuff in the seminary school.
It's your special Vatican people that are going out and doing these things.
They don't. But the Vatican doesn't advertise this. You have to be, and again, you can't just be your local parish priest because the church looks for everything else before there. Is there a medical condition? Is there psychological problems with the family? Because...
Well, think about the 70s and 80s. They had this onslaught of people claiming that their kids were possessed and all of that when it was just drugs or it was a mental condition.
And that's why the Vatican really started getting better at it, because again, the church was like, Jesus Christ, people, they didn't say that, but they were like, for the love of all things holy, everybody, your kids need a doctor, or they need to go to church more and confess their sins. But it's not the devil making them do it. So they started making sure that all their priests or their experts were ruling everything out, because...
And you can't just hire, Joe Schmo can just hire an exorcist. You have to go through...
You have to write...
Exorcisms can take years.
Well, now you would email the Vatican or call them, whatever.
No, you wouldn't.
But...
You'd have to go through
Well,
your
back-
local priest,
Yeah.
right?
Back then, you could write.
You can, I mean, but the process has always been the same. You can, sure, I can email anybody at the Vatican. That doesn't mean it'll happen.
But yeah, you
The
have
process-
to go through the proper channels.
Yeah, the proper channel starts with your local priest. Priest comes in, he blesses the home. He hears what you got to say. He understands. Then he'll make a report, because all priests have to report to the archdiocese, and they'll say, "Hey, your eminence, I've found this. This is really weird. I don't know what to make of it. I've tried my own little investigation. I'm not seeing anything. I think we need to up channel this.
And
Let's
then,
up channel
and then
to
for those that don't know, keep in mind, like, a lot of your major cities have your diocese right there.
Yeah.
Like, we have a diocese right over here.
exactly.
Ben, we passed by it and I showed Ben, it's fucking huge.
Exactly. And usually that's just the church. That's just a big church. But
Yeah.
like the head honcho will always be in a city like New York, Boston, Chicago. Because
Was
that's
there one in-
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
Was there one in Buffalo?
Yes, there was one
It's
in Buffalo.
usually your major cities.
Yeah,
your big, like, cities where you have especially where you have a lot of Catholic.
Yeah. And then at that point, it gets the request is routed to them. They have their own people there who are experts who can be like, okay, this is we need to send a psychiatrist there. That's what's probably needed. We'll go send it. And if everything starts getting ruled out, they're like, okay, call Rome. And then
they go to the actual,
because an official exorcist through the church can only occur with the blessings of the Pope. The Pope has to sign off and give his blessings.
Right.
Otherwise, there's just it doesn't work. It's for all intent. It'd be
Because
just
it's
like
not-
us doing.
Yeah, it's not from I know the Pope is like what, the law of the
He is the head
God?
of the church.
head of the church, so he has the word of the God, right?
He has the word of God, and he has the blessings of God to enact it. He's the final seal of approval, because otherwise it would just, what's that movie with Seth Rogen where they're exercising Jonah Hill or something? He's like, oh really, Jay? Oh really? Is it compelling? Guess what? It's not that compelling. That's literally, if Pan was possessed, haven't ruled that out. But if we were to suddenly just grab a crucifix and a Bible, and we'd be like, the power of Christ compels you, the power of Christ compels you, the demon would be like, oh, wow, that's so compelling.
Or
oh,
I
no.
could just say, fuck you, I'm not possessed.
that's what they all say.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck you, I'm not possessed.
But it'd be the same thing. You and I don't have any power, really.
Saying
or
that,
power.
You know, that's funny. That's where the Catholic Church and the Christian Church are different.
Well,
Yeah.
the non-denominational Christian. Yeah,
Because
Well, even with Lutheran churches,
Because
it's different.
growing up, we would cast demons out of people
Mm-hmm.
growing up.
Yeah, I wonder how well that worked.
So like we in the Christian church, you're told that God will grant you the gifts to do his works.
Yes.
As long as you are doing his work. So he will grant you the ability to cast demons out. He will grant you the ability to see angels. He will grant you the ability to speak in tongues. Because speaking in tongues obviously is the angelic tongue.
That wasn't our church.
That was
We're
my
just speaking in
church.
tongues.
Oh, I spoke in tongues. But yeah, like as a high schooler, I was told that we were casting demons out of people. So that's where it differs completely, because the Catholic Church relies on one person.
Yep.
Well, they rely on approval from the Vatican, which gives the blessing of it. But they have exorcist specialists who travel around and do this. The only difference is that the church does not, under any circumstances, disclose information on what they're doing, who they're doing it to, or the circumstances behind it.
You know, besides the one that was televised.
Which one?
Emily Rose.
See,
That was the one that was televised.
The thing, though, is with the exorcism of Emily Rose, that was in Germany. That was done without Vatican approval.
But it was done at a Catholic church.
It was,
and it was televised, and they got in big trouble for it.
I would
for
imagine.
2 reasons. One, because they had no approval, and B, the priest who did it was the local priest. He just decided
She
I can.
wasn't possessed. She had a
Eh,
mental health disorder, as far as we can tell. We don't know because it's so old. We don't know what she had.
it's one of those things where it comes down to fate.
First
No.
season, didn't
No,
we?
we did not. We talked about it, but we never did it.
We need to do Emily Rose because it's an interesting one because it does end up with it being it is the only known televised or recorded.
Recorded. It was. They recorded.
I don't think they televised it. I think they
No,
recorded it.
They recorded.
Yes, but it was shown everywhere.
Yeah.
Because it was a court case.
Yeah. But
Because
it
didn't
is,
she die?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she died. It was in Germany. She died.
she died because of it. And the church was held responsible. The Vatican was like,
because
they washed their hands of it. They said we didn't approve
And
this.
that's rare.
And if I remember right, the church got shut down for a little bit
Well,
until they brought in like a new priest.
Well, yeah,
and blah,
because
blah.
they, the parish lost its priest.
Yeah, he went to jail. He was charged with murder.
Yeah, isn't that rare that the Catholic Church wipes their hands clean of their dirty priest?
Well, in this instance, for this, no, they'll drop you like a bad habit. All the other stuff, no, they'll just sweep it under the rug.
Yeah, you won't ever hear about it.
No.
Welcome to every religion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Warrens and their team conducted it was their
Nephew.
conducted a thorough walkthrough of the house, focusing on the basement, which they identified as the epicenter of the activity. They discovered remnants of the funeral home, including mortuary tools, photos of deceased individuals. Lorraine claimed these objects could act as conduits for spirits, tethering them to the physical world. Again, why did you not get fucking
That's
rid
what
of
I
that?
would have been like.
Especially the pictures.
What's that? I'm like, what do you do? I would have been like,
The pictures would be
the
the,
house is
the
haunted.
tether.
Which one of you kids is fapping to some dead bodies?
Yeah,
Seriously.
it's like literally the pictures would have been the first thing I got rid of. Like being respectful of them.
Oh no, I would have thrown them in a fucking fire.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. I would have thrown them in the been respectful, but by burning them.
And then maybe get rid of the mortuary tools.
There would have been nothing left if we had moved into the house and like we had no choice. It's an old funeral home. It's been gone for a while, but they left some stuff. There would have been nothing left to say that this was once a funeral home.
The first thing that I would have done was had a blessing done on the house.
Oh yeah.
And then remove the stuff, and then have another blessing done on the house.
The priest on speed dial. Oh god, it's like
I would not have left that shit in the house.
and you look at some of this. You look at it, and everyone's like the defenders of this. They're like, how could anyone doubt these people? It's like when you're doing stupid shit like this. This doesn't this flies in the face of logic. Like, why would you keep this stuff?
Who's practicing necrophilia in that house?
Seriously, I'm starting to wonder. Like, I can understand leaving behind materials from a failed business if like the business went belly up. We got to leave. Okay, fine. I don't need this crap anymore.
Like, listen, Philip. We know you're close to death, but just wait. Like, come on. Jesus. So based on their findings, the Warrens concluded that the house was infested with multiple entities, including both human spirits and more sinister non-human forces.
Cockroaches?
Yes. Lorraine believed some of the spirits were former employees or clients of the funeral home, while Ed theorized that the darker entities were drawn to the house by the residual energy of grief and death.
I would love to have been there if he said that. I would have been like, duh.
And I want to make a statement that we're making fun of Philip because, although it's sad that he's sick, but from all we can account, he's involved in all of this stuff too.
Yes.
In making all this stuff up.
And it does look like Philip did go into remission for a little bit.
Yes.
And he passed away in 2012.
Yeah.
Also, if I remember
from
correctly,
cancer.
Yeah.
It came back.
So, but he was involved in all of this. So it's why it's okay that I'm.
also, from what I also understand from another documentary I saw on this, I believe Philip may have been one of the prime suspects for molesting his cousin.
Yeah.
So fuck that kid.
That's why if is were anybody else and it was a normal sick kid, I would not be making fun
because
of them.
they
Fuck Philip.
Yeah, if I remember right, Philip was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and then all of a sudden, as soon as he got out of the home, it went away.
Yeah. So
that's a thing.
fuck Philip. Actually, the ghost probably did that. So Ed used temperature sensors and EMF detectors to document anomalies. He captured readings that showed sharp temperature drops in otherwise warm areas and unusual spikes in EMF levels. The team also attempted to capture photographic and audio evidence. One investigator claimed to have recorded faint whispers and distant, unexplainable knocks.
Old house. Weird shit.
I am terrified to go to sleep tonight, guys.
You're welcome. So Lorraine conducted sessions in the basement during which she claimed to see apparitions of a man in a pinstripe suit and a pale woman with long black hair. She described the man as menacing, while the woman seemed sorrowful and trapped. In one session, Lorraine reported hearing a voice saying, "They did this to us," which she interpreted as a reference to the alleged necrophilia and improper practices that took place in the funeral home.
Really, a lot of these things always just keep harping on the stereotypes of funeral home workers.
Yeah.
It really seems like nothing that they've described. It's like, wow, this sounds like everything that every funeral home worker has been accused of over the years. They're these creepy people who are obsessed with death and do improper things with dead bodies. It's like,
it's how they used to be. Obviously, times have changed, and like I personally know somebody that works at a funeral home in my hometown, and she's my age and normal.
Yeah.
Like, times have changed, obviously. It's not like these creepy old men with a balding head that looks like that.
And a lot of those stereotypes. Fuck
It
you.
went right over his head.
That's because there's nothing to catch it.
Yeah.
Funny. No, but I think even those stereotypes come from like the Old West and like the turn of the century, when when preparing the dead was a lot more of a messier job that just nobody wanted to do.
Now it's almost an art.
It's that, and
you actually there's the school to it's not easy.
Yeah.
Like, you learn how to do makeup on dead bodies and stitch mouths together, do all of that stuff. Like, there's glue the eyelids open. Like, there is an art to it.
Yeah, it's and also it's a very competitive market if anybody ever wanted to open a funeral home, because you've had some of these places are family run institutions going back for a while. I went to
especially around here.
I know when I went to high school, one of the kids I went to high school with, his family ran multiple funeral homes in the Western New York area. Like, if you talk to him, he was like a jock. He wasn't like a creepy. I just imagine when I heard his last name, I thought, wait, the funeral home? He's like, yeah. My grandpa started the business, and I was like, you're not. He's like, well, is that
you're not emo?
Yeah, he wasn't. That was the thing. He was not an emo. He was a jock. He played on like the football team. Yeah. I was like, dude, I expected something. He's like, I don't give a shit. Dead people or whatever. It's like, okay.
I'd kill them and send them to my family. So the Warrens used religious artifacts, including crucifixes and holy water, to elicit reactions from these entities. These rituals reportedly triggered violent activities, such as objects flying across the room and loud banging sounds echoing through the house. While staying overnight in the house, John Zaffis claimed to experience phantomania, a form of sleep paralysis associated with paranormal attacks. He described feeling a heavy weight on his chest and seeing a shadowy figure hovering over him. Zaffis later recounted hearing whispers and laughter that seemed to come from multiple sources, as if the entities were mocking him. They were. The Warrens concluded that the house was experiencing an extreme form of infestation, with demonic entities feeding off the emotional turmoil of the family. They believe the combination of the funeral home's dark history and the family's vulnerability created the perfect environment for these forces to manifest. The Warrens uncovered rumors that a funeral home employee had been involved in necrophilia and satanic rituals. While these claims were unverified, they aligned with the demonic nature of the activity reported by the family.
Of course they did.
Ed and Lorraine warned the Snedekers that the activity would likely to continue to escalate unless the house was properly cleansed. They advised the family to avoid provoking the entities further and to participate in the rituals they planned to conduct for an extra $5,000. Like, no joke, they would charge out the ass for them. They didn't do this shit for free.
Oh no, their speaking engagements were all paid events. You had to pay to get into their shit.
So this already struggling family is having to pay Ed and Lorraine out the ass.
I want to know how they got that money.
Mm-hmm.
If they were struggling,
They never said what the Snedekers did they?
No.
Maybe they're selling dead bodies.
Well, that's why they kept all the tools.
I'm interested when I research Ed and Lorraine. I know it's going to be a couple-part episode.
Oh yeah, they're always interesting just because of all the BS they're able to just weave together.
Yeah.
I remember I read
out of the thousands of cases that they investigated, I'm pretty sure they ran across something.
Oh yeah, I mean, some of the stuff they described has been kind of on par with actual hauntings. Like just statistically, yeah, they had to run into a few of them, but some of the claims they make are just so outlandish. Like I remember read somewhere where Ed said that he once encountered a man possessed by a werewolf demon. Of course, I read that. I wanted to ask if he had been there. I would have asked Ed. It's like, so was his bark worse than his bite?
Was his bite worse than his bark?
I mean, he actually he made good money. So, from all accounts, Alan Snedeker was a stonemason.
Okay, he actually build stuff.
From what we can tell, so in 1986, stonemasons made between $10 and $15 per hour.
Okay, that's pretty.
That's huge. So he would have made about $30,000 a year. In our money, with inflation, that's $80,000 to $85,000.
Okay, that's still.
So he made good money, and the wife was a waitress in between jobs.
Okay.
So if he really was a stonemason and he was still doing that, he made pretty good fucking money. That's good money for 1986.
And I mean, with Carmen being a waitress, that makes sense. So she can be home with the family.
Yeah.
She could be home. Yeah, be home with Philip.
But apparently, if we're going to probably see that money problems are going to tie into what probably prompted all this.
Yes. So the Warrens reached out to the Archdiocese of Hartford to request an official exorcism of the house. After reviewing the case, the diocese assigned 2 priests to assist in the cleansing. The exorcism involved prayers, the use of holy water, and the invocation of saints to banish the entities from the property. During the exorcism, Ed reportedly experienced severe chest pain, which he interpreted as an attack by the entities. He described the pain as unnatural, claiming it to have disappeared as soon as the exorcism concluded. That fat man had a heart attack.
I was about to say,
keep in mind, they were not skinny people.
No.
These were big people.
If I remember right, the Archdiocese of Hartford doesn't have anything on this house or this family reaching out.
I mean, I don't believe so. The church will never officially comment on, like I said before, they won't comment on what they're doing, who they're doing it with, or how they did it when it comes to exorcisms. You have to pull teeth just to even get to acknowledge that what was reported to them was involved an exorcist or a demonic spirit. They don't.
Yeah, but I don't think they have any record whatsoever of the family even attending church.
Correct. The Archdiocese has stated that no officially sanctioned exorcism took place at that location.
Exactly. They will, and the Vatican.
Now, it may have.
Well, here's the thing. But again, though, the Vatican is very protective. I know it sounds funny given all the scandals in the recent history with them, but the church does take in these matters because they do take a lot of extra steps to protect their reputation because, again, a lot of times people need doctors and psychiatrists instead of a priest going, the power of Christ compels you, the power of Christ compels you to solve the problems. This, slapping holy water on somebody with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, is not going to cure them of that. Medicine and therapy will do that. So that's why the Vatican is very hush-hush about this, because then everybody will just go to the church to cure me. Satan is talking to me when I sleep. It's like, you're watching too many horror movies. Stop that.
As the exorcism reached its climax, a large tree outside the house reportedly snapped in half without explanation. Lorraine later suggested this was a physical manifestation of the entity's departure.
Or it's
The exorcism reached a climax and then that tree.
Also, if you look at, I'm looking at the property right now on Google. A lot of trees that are still there. I don't know which they're. I don't know where the other tree was. It could have been.
So the family reported an immediate shift in the atmosphere of the house. The oppressive energy seemed to lift, and the unexplained phenomena ceased. Carmen described the house as feeling light and peaceful for the first time since they had moved in. Satisfied with the results of the exorcism, the Warrens left the Snedekers with instructions to maintain their faith and avoid discussing the haunting in detail, as doing so could reawaken the entities or ruin their future. The Warrens' involvement brought the Snedeker story to national attention, but also fueled skepticism. Critics accused the Warrens of exaggeration and sensationalism, pointing to their involvement in other controversial cases like Amityville, which
we covered in the previous
we already
episode.
covered, so go listen to it.
Yeah.
So Lorraine later described the Snedeker haunting as one of the most intense cases they had ever handled. She believed the family's resilience and faith played a critical role in overcoming the ordeal. Ed emphasized the importance of proper intervention, stating that without the exorcism, the activity could have led to severe harm or even death. The case cemented the Warrens' reputation as pioneers of paranormal investigation. It also set the stage for their eventual portrayal in popular media, including films like The Conjuring.
Uh-huh.
So, let's talk about controversy. Because
the skepticism and the contradictions.
You know, this house.
There's a lot.
You know, this house is valued at almost $500,000 on Zillow.
Not surprising.
It's a nice house.
Critics frequently point to inconsistencies in the Snedekers' accounts of the haunting. Different family members provided varying descriptions of events during interviews, which raised questions about the credibility of their claims. In one televised interview, Carmen's niece Tammy described being assaulted by a demonic entity in great detail. However, in another interview, a different niece, identified as Kelly, told a nearly identical story, leading some to suspect fabrication or rehearsed storytelling. Also, remember that none of these names are real.
Correct.
All of these names have been changed to protect the kids.
I believe the only names that are, it's Carmen, Philip, and
Philip, it's not his real name.
Oh, I thought it was.
Nope. Everybody's name was protected because they were all underage. So it's only the parents. That was their real name. We don't know what their real names are. So if you read any reports, it'll still say Philip.
Yeah.
But we don't know what his real name is. Yeah, all of the names were changed. So Tammy, Kelly, that wasn't their real names for obvious reasons. So Daryl Kern, the landlord who rented the property to the Snedekers, publicly disputed their story. He maintained that he had informed the family about the house's history as a funeral home before they signed the lease. Kern claimed the Snedekers began reporting paranormal activity only after they fell behind on rent, suggesting they concocted the haunting to gain financial leverage or public sympathy. Bum, bum, bum.
I do.
On rent, bitches.
Yeah, I do believe that he.
He had to.
I don't think there was a law back in the 80s like there is now. But now, by law in most states, you have to say what the history of the house is.
And plus, I believe also some of the neighbors said there were still some signs faded, but they were still visible. It said, what was it, Harnell? It was said it was a funeral home. It still had the actual name of what it used to be. So,
and I want to know why, like Daryl, like, I wonder if all that evidence that they found of like the funeral home was actually in there, because as a landlord, wouldn't you think that you would clean all that stuff out?
Depends. I mean, if they're selling the house or renting the house as is, maybe he was going to clean it out and they said, no, we'll take it. We need to move in now.
Yeah.
Because we can't do this drive anymore.
Yeah, that could have very well have been it. Of course, you think the decent thing to do would have been to get some of the stuff out, like the chemicals.
But if he just bought the property,
Yeah,
and then they're like, "Oh, we need to rent like, oh, you're renting? Okay, cool. We need to rent it like today."
So, local residents who lived near the house also expressed skepticism. Neighbors often saw the Snedekers outside laughing and socializing with no apparent signs of terror, they later described in interviews. One neighbor, Catherine Altamus, stated, "I think they had this planned right from when they moved in, implying the family intended to fabricate the haunting for attention and profit."
Wouldn't surprise me.
While the Warrens were celebrated by paranormal enthusiasts, they faced criticisms from skeptics and academics for their investigative methods. Critics accused them of prioritizing sensationalism over scientific evidence, often interpreting mundane phenomena as supernatural. In this case, skeptics noted that the Warrens' theories about necrophilia and satanic rituals in the funeral home were based on hearsay and lacked verifiable evidence.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it.
Again, what's all the stereotype of funeral home workers?
Yep.
A bunch of weirdos who are into some weird shit.
Horror author Ray Garton, who was hired to write In a Dark Place, a story of a true haunting, later expressed doubts about the authenticity of the Snedeker story. Garton revealed that during his interviews with the family, their accounts were inconsistent and often contradictory. When he raised these concerns with Ed Warren, Ed allegedly told him to make it up and make it scary.
Yeah. I've heard further expansion of that quote is saying, "Oh yeah, they're nuts. People who come to us aren't normal."
Yeah.
So
Garton's admission cast a shadow over the Warrens' involvement, fueling accusations that the case was exaggerated or fabricated for financial gain.
which it probably was.
During interviews, the Warrens referred to the priest who conducted the exorcism only as Father A, claiming he wished to remain anonymous. They wouldn't have done that.
No.
Mm-mm.
Skeptics question the validity of the exorcism, especially when no records could be found to confirm its occurrence.
And I'm pretty sure with stuff like that, he would tell them, "I don't want to be put in any of your reports."
So here's the thing about when the Catholic Church gets involved in an exorcism. They're not brought in as like consultants. When the church does an exorcism, they're in charge.
They are the law.
Yeah, they bring their people.
Because remember, the Vatican has their own law enforcement, everything.
It's not just law
So
enforcement.
they wouldn't even let Ed and Lorraine put their name in.
Ed and Lorraine Warren wouldn't have been.
This would have been the Vatican's investigation.
Exactly.
At that point.
It would have been there. We wouldn't have known if this was a true demonic, like what they're describing. We would not know about it.
We wouldn't be talking about it right now.
Exactly, because it wouldn't. The only reason that we know about the Exorcist, the book, like the movie in the book that made it, is because what we know about it is because a private investigator spent 10 years of his life tracking people down until finally he was able to get a hold of now the full-grown adult, but the young boy who was possessed, and even then they had to jump through a lot of hoops just for him to basically have like the reporter would ask a private investigator questions, the private investigator would go to the boy, and that's how it was. Like nobody ever talked to one another because there were legalities involved, changed identities. Like I said, if the Catholic Church is doing an exorcism, they're in charge, they're people. Ed and Lorraine Warren wouldn't have had anything to do with this. For the sheer fact that they are very public. Even if Ed and Lorraine Warren were 100% legit, the fact that they're public figures, or at least they were, they would never have been involved.
During his time living in the house, Philip exhibited increasingly erratic behavior, including violent outbursts and a fascination with the occult. These behaviors were later attributed to his diagnosis of schizophrenia. Medical professionals noted that schizophrenia can cause hallucinations, paranoia, and changes in personality, which could explain some of the experiences Philip described. Philip's cancer treatments included chemotherapy and radiation, both of which can have significant physical and psychological side effects. Fatigue, anxiety, and cognitive changes are common, potentially contributing to his perception of supernatural activity. However, his doctors emphasized that the medications he was taking would not cause the specific hallucinations or violent tendencies he exhibited, leaving some aspects of his behavior unexplained.
Probably because he was a disturbed kid who just happened to have cancer.
So, critics have noted striking similarities between Snedeker's accounts and the 1982 film The Entity, which tells the story of a woman tormented by a poltergeist that sexually assaults her.
Not the best movie. People say it's great. I don't like it.
Specific details such as the quilt being pulled off of a sleeping individual and physical assaults by unseen forces appear to mirror scenes from the movie, raising suspicions that the family may have borrowed elements from fictional works. The 1980s and early 1990s saw a surge of interest in paranormal phenomena driven by movies, TV shows, and books. Stories of hauntings and possessions were particularly popular, creating a receptive audience for tales like the Snedekers.
Mm-hmm.
The Snedekers' decision to share the story publicly, including collaborating on a book and participating in a documentary, led to accusations that they were motivated by financial gain. Skeptics argue that the family may have exaggerated or fabricated their experiences to secure book deals, media appearances, and other financial opportunities. Media coverage of the case often focused on the most shocking aspects of the haunting, such as sexual assaults by demonic entities and the alleged necrophilia tied to the funeral home. This sensationalism amplified the story's appeal, but also made it harder to separate fact from fiction. Although the Warrens claim the involvement of the Catholic clergy in the investigation and the exorcism, local priests and church officials distanced themselves from the case. Some clergy members privately expressed doubts about the validity of the haunting. When asked for official records of the exorcism, the Archdiocese of Hartford stated they had no documentation of such a ritual being performed at 208 Meriden Avenue.
They wouldn't have it. Any documentation like this would have been forwarded to the Vatican where it's stored.
Locked.
That way the Archdiocese could say with an honest answer, we don't have it. But again, nobody would have done that. Nobody thought that this wasn't a haunting.
The Warrens' reputation was already polarizing, with some viewing them as pioneers in paranormal investigation, others accusing them of exploiting vulnerable families for fame and profit.
They were.
Critics pointed out that the Warrens often worked on cases that had potential for media attention, suggesting a pattern of prioritizing high-profile investigations over less sensational ones.
There was Ghost Hunters, I believe it was the first season or the second season.
Before they faked everything?
Yeah.
Are you talking about Ghost Adventures or
No, I'm not
Ghost
talking about
Hunters?
Zach Baggins. I'm talking about TAPS, the Atlantic Paranormal Society.
Oh,
Jason
you mean
Hawes.
the legit ones?
Yeah, the legit guys. I love Jason Hawes and Grant and everybody in the TAPS guys. I love you guys. No, they went to a house that it wasn't one of the like these. It was supposedly investigated by the Warrens, according to the owner. They did their investigation and they're like, nope.
Well, I think it was the Perone family
Oh, those guys.
that they had two separate. They had one group come out and they're like, yeah, we find some evidence, but it's not horrible.
Yeah.
But the minute that the Warrens came out, the Perone father said, I do not want any seances done in this house.
What did they do?
What does Ed do? Perform a seance, which got his wife attacked.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole episode on the Perone family haunting.
I think I have that written down too.
Yeah.
Because the first investigators, I believe they said that they were there when Ed and Lorraine were there.
Yeah, it was. The Warrens have always been a showboat. I'm sorry, I know.
But again, this was also Ghost Adventures that I saw this on. So,
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of Ghost Adventures, our thoughts go out to Aaron Goodwin.
yes,
Almost being killed
Yeah.
by his wife. So
I love you, Aaron. You were like my
Aaron's
favorite.
my favorite in there.
Yes.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
So
Aaron and Nick was my other favorite.
yeah. So
Aaron, you need to distance yourself.
you guys
from
know
that.
the entire story of why his wife did that, right?
No.
Didn't she like start having an affair with like a convict or something?
So yes, so there was a guy who, so there's like two stories in one in this, and we're gonna kind of linger off to this. So there is a guy, I forget his name, but he was obsessed with a cam model, okay, and he used to donate money to her, all the time. And became even more obsessed. He would steal money from his family to donate to her. He ended up stealing about $200,000 from his family and giving it to this cam model. Well, then they cut him off and said, "You can't do this anymore. We're taking your phone."
Oh.
And he then said, "No, I'm not having that." Grabbed a gun and killed everybody in his family. His brother, I believe, his mother, and his father. He was then sentenced to prison. Well, the story, there's actually a documentary on him. It's called Control Alt something. It's on like
Oh,
Netflix.
I think I know what you're talking about.
So that's this guy.
Okay.
So he then, women started writing him. Because women
Naturally.
Are weird.
Okay.
And
I want to specify I will never write someone who like that in prison.
I would
Ever?
hope not. I would hope Ben divorce you.
I would at that point, yes.
So
There's something
instead
mentally
of
wrong with
hiring
me.
somebody to kill Ben. So, well, you could hire me.
That won't happen.
And we'll split them.
No, of course Pam would
I'll
never
just
hire.
make
Pam
Ben
would-
disappear.
Pam would never hire someone to kill me. It will just be her and me in a one-on-one fight to the death match.
So Aaron Goodwin's wife watches this documentary. So they were seemingly happily married, and they were happy for a while. He's extremely happy. She gets lonely. He's off filming all the time. It's understandable.
Yeah.
He's off filming all the time. We get that. Don't do this.
Yeah.
No.
So she watches this documentary and decides to write him. So they end up writing back and forth. He ends up getting access to a cell phone. They end up texting back and forth, and over time, they
Catch feelings.
fall in love with each other. And instead of divorcing her husband, this guy gives her the idea to hire a hitman to kill him. So the guy calls somebody that he has a connection with and says, "Hey, can you kill this guy?" And he says, "Sure." It was like $11,363. It was like a very specific weird amount.
That's a weird.
It is. Yeah. It was a specific amount. It wasn't just like 11,000. It was 11,000 something. But I know it was 11,000. So then she gives his shooting schedule, his location. She used the Find My app to give his exact location.
Oh shit!
So
this happened when they were like filming.
Yes. So at the time that they do this, he's according to his Find My, Aaron is in the hotel sleeping.
Oh.
So
shit.
the guy in prison is just waiting because it's supposed to happen right now. A few hours go by, nothing. He hears nothing. And he checks back and says, "Hey, did it happen?" As soon as he sends that text, the jail doors kick in, and the guards grab the cell phone, and snatch him up and take the cell phone. Well, then she's trying to figure out what happened. Well, this guy can't communicate with her. So nobody knows what happened to the hitman. He just never did the job.
Probably got caught.
Aaron Goodwin came back home, and his wife started acting normal. Like they were happy. She was posting on Instagram of them cuddling with their dog and this and that, all lovey-dovey. And then the guards start investigating into the cell phone of the inmate and see the text messages between the two of them. So then they go to her, they arrest her. She is held on a $100,000 bond for conspiracy to commit murder. And she actually had her first court hearing today, where she said that she does not remember sending those text messages.
Uh-huh.
She has another court. The next court hearing is April 8th. So as these court hearings go on, we'll start talking about more of it. But Aaron did file for divorce.
Good on him.
And so hopefully with the court, what they'll probably do is usually when they do this, they'll bring in the divorce into the court proceedings to make it easier, and that judge will rule on the divorce.
Which he's going to rule in favor of.
Of course. So probably in the next hearing, the divorce or her final hearing when they do the sentencing, that's when the divorce will be finalized. So unfortunately, he has to wait a little bit, but she's being held in prison.
And I guarantee you, he has
well, he's still working. He's back filming.
He already has a hard restraining order against her.
He's already filming and everything. So all of that to say, like, that it's insane. Like, I grew up watching Aaron Goodwin. Like,
he's hilarious. I love Aaron.
He's one of my favorites. He's a big dude, big teddy bear. But yeah, so there's that. When everything comes out, we may do a full episode on it because it's very interesting because it's two stories melded in one.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if that hitman that he hired didn't flip on the dude.
Oh, it happens all the time.
Or he just took the money and ran.
That too.
So, one of the most significant points of contention is why the Snedeker stayed in the house for more than 2 years, despite claiming to experience life-threatening terror. Skeptics argue that a truly haunted house would prompt an immediate move regardless of financial or logistical challenges. At that time, go fucking buy a trailer.
Live in the trailer.
Live in a trailer.
Honestly.
Go live on the street. It's better.
Honestly, though, just my stubbornness, I would probably... I'd be like, I wouldn't be like, I will not be chased away by a bunch of dead people.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you're hearing that I'm getting assaulted...
Well, that's different.
Like,
But I guarantee you, like, we've had some stuff in this house, not obviously. Like
no.
But if you start hearing this in the middle of the night and hearing,
yeah, that's true. It's all academic until you're actually confronted with
then
it.
Yeah, let's go get a hotel.
I mean,
And again, they could have done that.
Yeah.
Go get a motel.
You literally slept with the knife one night because the lights turned on in our house in Boston.
To be fair, that knife was already there. It wasn't like I got it specifically for that, but I did. But
you had me come and sweep the house to make sure no one was inside the house when it was locked. Everything was locked.
Yeah, how many people have actually said that the house was locked just before they got broke into?
So, many of the Snedeker's most dramatic claims, such as the shower curtain attack and the blood-red mop water, lack corroborating evidence. Without physical proof or independent witnesses, these accounts remain anecdotal. Cameras weren't a thing in 1986. I mean, they existed, but
they were expensive.
Especially the big, massive Polaroids.
Yeah, and besides, I doubt they're going to capture in real time. A mop bucket that was full of water is now blood.
Plus, no color, black and white. Can't capture that. Ultimately, the question of Snedeker's motivations remains central to the controversy. Were they genuinely terrorized by supernatural forces, or did they craft a story that capitalized on cultural fascination with the paranormal? Now, despite the skepticism, the Snedeker haunting remains one of the most well-known cases in paranormal lore, thanks in large part to its dramatization in books and films. The controversy surrounding the case has only added to its mystique, ensuring its place as a subject of debate among believers and skeptics alike. The case highlights the challenges of investigation and verifying paranormal phenomena, particularly when they involve subjective experiences and anecdotal evidence. Now, the haunting in Connecticut is more than a tale of one family's paranormal experiences. It's a cultural phenomenon that continues to captivate audiences decades later. Its blend of human vulnerability, psychological trauma, and supernatural terror resonates on multiple levels, making it a staple in a paranormal lore. The Snedeker family's story has become synonymous with the archetypal haunted house narrative, joining ranks with other infamous cases like Amityville and the Smurl haunting. The story touches on universal fears, death, the unknown, and the sanctity of home being violated, The idea that a safe space could become a source of terror taps into primal anxieties that audiences find both thrilling and deeply unsettling. The connection between grief, trauma, and the supernatural adds emotional depth to the story, allowing it to function as both a horror tale and a commentary on the human condition. Now, Ed and Lorraine Warren's involvement lent the Snedeker case credibility among believers and elevated its profile in the paranormal community. Their assertion that the house was infested with demonic entities added a dramatic layer to the story, making it ripe for adaptation. The Warrens' ability to present their cases as spiritual battles between good and evil has cemented their legacy in pop culture, with the Snedeker haunting being one of their most publicized investigations. The Snedeker case helped set the stage for future media projects based on the Warrens' investigations. Their work would later inspire the Conjuring films, which became a global sensation and created an entire cinematic universe centered on their exploits. In 1992, horror author Ray Garton collaborated with the Warrens and the Snedeker family to write In a Dark Place, the story of a true haunting. The book provided a detailed account of the family's experiences, framing them as victims of a malevolent supernatural force. Garton later expressed doubts about the authenticity of the story, revealing that the family's accounts were inconsistent and that Ed Warren encouraged him to make it up and make it scary. Despite this, the book remains a cornerstone of the hauntings legacy. The Discovery Channel's documentary brought the story to a wider audience, using dramatic reenactments to depict key events. It was part of the network's A Haunting series, which focused on real-life paranormal experiences. The documentary presented the family's accounts as factual, further embedding the story into cultural imagination. Its eerie visuals and suspenseful narration made it a favorite among fans of paranormal media.
And I believe there is a version of A Haunting, the series, A Haunting in Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's not just the movie, it's the name of the series as well.
correct. It came out in 2002. So, released in 2009, the film Haunting in Connecticut was a dramatized retelling of the Snedeker family's experiences. It followed the fictional Campbell family who moved into a former funeral home to be closer to their son's cancer treatment center. While the film retained the basic premise, it took significant creative liberties, including the addition of new characters, subplots, and exaggerated supernatural elements. For example, the movie depicted the house burning down in a climactic exorcism scene, an event that never occurred in real life because the house is still standing. The film received mixed reviews from critics, but was a commercial success, grossing over $77 million worldwide. Its eerie atmosphere, intense performances, and emotional core struck a chord with audiences, particularly fans of supernatural horror.
Fuck that. Nope. Not watching it.
It was a decent movie.
What, Haunting in Connecticut?
It's a decent movie.
I'm good.
Lorraine Warren criticized the film for its inaccuracies, stating that it exaggerated the true events for dramatic effect. She argued that the actual story was compelling enough without the need for Hollywood embellishments. She is a Hollywood embellishment.
Seriously.
She embellished the story herself.
In the sequel, a sequel in name only, The Haunting in Connecticut 2, that came out in 2013, called Ghosts of Georgia, explored an entirely different case of paranormal activity. It followed the story of a family in Georgia dealing with ghostly apparitions tied to the Underground Railroad. While unrelated to the original story, the sequel capitalized on the branding and continued to draw audiences interested in true haunting tales. Here's the thing. Why is it not called Haunting in Georgia?
Exactly.
I never understood.
Haunting in Connecticut 2, The Ghost of Georgia.
I never understood that.
So they could capitalize on the name.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Snedeker haunting inspired countless articles, podcasts like this one,
Whoops.
and YouTube videos, each offering their own interpretations and analysis of the events. These retellings keep the story alive, ensuring its relevance in paranormal discourse. You ever think about that? So, let's say people just stop thinking about something and it just starts falling off, and then podcasters like us decide, hey, let's talk about this, and now, we're making Ed and Lorraine popular again. Damn.
Fuck.
Anyways, alongside cases like the Amityville Horror, The Haunting in Connecticut has become a benchmark for haunted house stories. Its blend of psychological, physical, and supernatural terror set a standard for similar narratives. The case's emphasis on the interplay between human vulnerability and paranormal forces continues to influence how haunted house stories are told in books, film, and television. At its core, the Snedeker haunting reflects universal fears about morality, trauma, and the fragility of human life. These themes resonate across cultures, making the story accessible and relatable to audiences worldwide. The story contributed to the resurgence of interest in haunted house narratives in the late 20th century and early 21st century. It paved the way for other iconic stories such as The Conjuring, Annabelle, and The Babadook, which similarly explore the intersection of personal struggle and supernatural horror. I actually like The Babadook.
Mm.
I haven't heard that one, but I will not be researching.
Annabelle.
I will not be researching that one or writing that episode
Annabelle.
if we
Oh,
do it, and I
God.
will not be part of it either.
Freaking Annabelle
Ugh,
doll.
It's just a doll.
Have you
Where do
actually
you think my fear of the dolls and that came from, other than Chucky? And
Well-
yes, I have seen the actual Annabelle doll.
What's it look like?
It's a fucking rag doll.
Yeah, it's a Raggedy Ann doll.
Yeah, dude, you're.
The skepticism around Snedeker case has only added to its mystique. The ongoing debate between believers and skeptics keep the story relevant, ensuring it remains a topic of discussion in paranormal communities. The contradictions in the family's accounts, coupled with the Warrens' controversial reputation, create a dynamic narrative that invites constant revelation or reevaluation. The Snedeker case highlights the shift in how paranormal investigations are consumed. What once may have been private family tragedies are now public stories packaged and sold as entertainment. This commercialization has both amplified the story's reach and invited scrutiny.
And I want to say that I did spell
You did. I just
it
read
right.
wrong. Whether viewed as a true haunting and cautionary tale or a fabricated narrative, The Haunting in Connecticut has left an indelible mark on popular culture. Its themes, characters, and events continue to inspire new generations of storytellers and paranormal enthusiasts. The case serves as a reminder of the power of storytelling, the complexities of belief, and the ways in which trauma can shape perceptions of reality. As paranormal stories continue to evolve, the Snedeker family's experience remains a touchstone for exploring the unknown. Now, the Snedeker's family experience, whether viewed as a genuine paranormal phenomenon or a fabricated story, undoubtedly shaped their lives. Living in a house filled with fear, tension, and conflict left emotional scars that extend beyond their time in Southington. Carmen Snedeker has spoken about how the haunting challenged her faith and sense of reality, ultimately leading her to rely on spiritual practices to find peace. Her continued advocacy for others facing paranormal experience suggests the lasting impact of their ordeal. Regardless of whether the haunting was real, the psychological and emotional strain on the family is undeniable. Between Philip's illness, financial difficulties, and the eerie environment of the house, the Snedekers were under immense stress, which could have amplified perceptions of the supernatural. This case serves as a reminder of how trauma and anxiety can shape human experiences, blurring the lines between reality and perception. At its heart, the Snedeker story is about the violation of home as a sanctuary. The idea that a place meant to protect and nurture a family could instead become a source of terror resonates deeply with audiences. This theme has universal appeal, reflecting the fear of losing control over one's environment and the vulnerability that comes with it. The house's history as a funeral home added an eerie layer to the story, intertwining themes of death, grief, and the unknown. This connection highlights the human desire to find meaning and morality and explore what might lie beyond. The story challenges audiences to consider how our cultural and personal attitudes towards death influence our interpretations of the supernatural. The haunting has sparked debates between believers and skeptics for decades. The tension reflects a broader cultural conversation about how we process unexplained phenomena. The case invites us to examine the role of belief systems in shaping our understanding of the world, whether rooted in science, faith, or personal experience. The contradictions and controversies surrounding the Snedeker case reveal how difficult it can be to discern truth in emotionally charged situations. Personal biases, cultural influences, and media sensationalism all play a role in shaping narratives. The complexity encourages a more nuanced approach to evaluating paranormal stories, balancing skepticism with empathy for those who claim such experiences. One of the most compelling aspects of the Snedeker story is the intersection with its trauma. The family struggles, financial stress, illness, and fear created a context in which supernatural interpretations might thrive. This case underscores the importance of addressing underlying emotional and psychological factors when investigating paranormal claims. The Snedeker haunting exemplifies how media can amplify and distort real life events. Books, documentaries, and films have turned the story into a cultural phenomenon, but they have also muddied the waters of truth. As audiences, we must remain critical of how such stories are presented, questioning the motivations and methods behind their retelling. Now, the hauntings legacy in popular culture. The haunting in Connecticut has left an indelible mark on popular culture. Its themes and narrative structure have influenced countless haunted house stories, shaping how such tales are told in literature, film, and television. The case's connection to Ed and Lorraine Warren have solidified its place within the broader mythology of paranormal investigations, alongside iconic cases like Amityville and Annabelle. Beyond its horror elements, the Snedeker story serves as a cautionary tale about the intersection of belief, fear, and exploitation. It reminds us of the ethical responsibilities involved in documenting and sharing stories of personal trauma. So, what really happened? Decades later, the events of 208 Meriden Avenue remain shrouded in mystery. Were the Snedekers truly haunted, or were their experiences shaped by stress, illness, and cultural influences? The lack of definitive evidence leaves the case open to interpretation, ensuring it remains a topic of fascination for believers and skeptics alike. How much of the Snedekers' experience was influenced by their own expectations and fears? This question invites a deeper explanation of how belief systems and psychological states shape our understanding of reality. As we wrap up this journey through the haunting in Connecticut, we're left with a haunting question. What truly happened at 208 Meriden Avenue? Was it a genuine brush with the supernatural, a family's way of coping with immense stress, or a story shaped by the cultural fascination with the paranormal? Whatever you believe, this tale reminds us of the human need to seek meaning in the mysterious and the unknown. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Are you convinced the Snedekers experienced a true haunting, or do you see their story as a product of circumstance and imagination? Share your take with us on social media or in the comment section. We're eager to hear your perspectives. We want to thank you for joining us in this chilling exploration. Please subscribe, leave a review, share this episode with fellow fans of the unexplained. But this journey doesn't end here. Next time, we'll be delving into the fascinating and unsettling world of Heaven's Gate cult. So, I want to thank everybody for listening. That was Haunting in Connecticut.
Well, the bullshit in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you all have been paying attention this far, I think I can speak for everyone here. Nobody believes that these people actually were haunted.
I think that they had some stuff happen, but I don't think it was to the extreme that they are saying. I think it was more residual versus an actual haunting.
If it was anything, it would be that. I don't believe they did anything. I think they were getting behind. It's like the landlord said. Everything started happening when the rent started to fall behind. I think they knew what the house was when they got there, whether it still had all the materials from the funeral home there still. We don't know. All we have is their word saying that all the stuff was there. And while I can believe that they took the place sight unseen, I just can't believe that all that material was just left there. It's still possible. I get it. They just told the landlord, we'll just take it and as is, don't do anything. We need to move in like next Tuesday. So the landlord was maybe he was just like, I don't care, whatever. But I still, again, we only have their word to say that all this stuff was there. I think once I think they had their own problems going on in the house, and they used the hauntings as a convenient cover for all of their problems. Can't pay the rent. Oh, the ghosts are keeping us out and doing all kinds of horrible stuff. My nieces are getting.
I wonder if that would work.
I don't think so.
Probably not.
Like, hey, landlord, our place is haunted.
If our landlords ever listen to this, we are not going to do that to you.
We are not.
They don't know about this podcast.
But my son is acting now, possibly got mental illness and maybe is molesting his cousins. Now the ghosts are making him do it.
Yeah.
That's what it really boils down to. I think they just blamed the ghost. They caught the attention of the Warrens, and they were like, "Oh, we can make money now," and just ran with it.
Well, we want to thank everybody for listening. Please remember to turn in your glasses, push in your seat, and as always, tip the bard. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Tink.
Week.